I would really prefer not to have to deal with people in general, actually. Aren't I such a people person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, little sidetrack. Sidetrack on the sidetrack.
No, we've gone for half an hour so far with nothing but sidetracks.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 24.
Everyone has things that they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
to join us on our hill to die on. I got my new office mostly set up in the little bit of time that I spent there this week.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like at some point we will get August correct. I don't know what year that will be, but some year we will have things efficiently done ahead of time.
I'm going to tell you 2028 that year.
I thought you were saying 2028 will be the year, but that might actually be true.
Sorry, I'm saying 2020 ain't that year.
Yep, I agree.
Because if I've learned anything about 2020 thus far, if we want to keep this an all ages podcast, I can't say it.
Well, you know, it's exciting to start the year with 3 printers that are on the fritz, right? That's just real exciting.
What?
I know.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is what I get for not paying attention to the tech request right now.
Yeah, well, it's good that you're not. You'll get freaked out. And the big problem is just all the additional stuff of starting the year in a different manner, right? I mean, that's a problem. And then we have a new tech staff guy. He will be quick to learn things. I have no doubt. Mm-hmm. But the problem is he doesn't know them today, right? So I can't assign him to a printer today.
Let's be honest. You can be here for 20 years and printers still befuddle.
But he is helping a lot with getting the Chromebooks and iPads back into place from the distance learning time. That is what needs to be done, and he is doing that, and that's great. And getting them all organized again in Jamf and stuff like that. And not only do we have to get the iPads back into elementary classrooms, but we have to count them and make sure they have the right number. And of course, we accepted new kids over the summer because we lost a whole bunch. So accepting more new kids was a great thing. So, you know, numbers change. So we got to make sure that we have the right number in each classroom. So he's going to handle all of that. And I don't have to do anything about that.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing, like the whole amount of like schoolwork that I've been doing over the past week has been me basically working on my lesson plans for the new class. And I have some really interesting things. I found a flow chart that I love.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to say it. I love this flow chart because what it does is it uses like computer logic to run through the song of Hey Jude.
Okay.
Basically, it starts the song.
Whoa, cool.
Thank you. When I was telling somebody else about that, they basically called me a nerd, which isn't wrong, but since my first unit is going to be basically logic and Boolean thinking and all of this stuff, I am going to have them do this with one of their favorite songs as basically a practice assignment to how to think about things.
Yeah, sounds good to me. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's actually very well laid out, too.
So X's is like the verse. I wonder what Y is. Y is greater than 8.
Yeah.
Oh, then it sets Y to... Okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. I found a couple examples of stuff like this, and this one was my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another good thing that I have been using is there's a college-level CS50 on YouTube.
Okay.
Where basically it's an introduction to programming.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, his first lesson that he does goes through most of what I want to go through in my first unit.
Okay.
Of course, he runs through it at a high speed because it's college level, but I can definitely steal a lot of what he's using. And I mean borrow a lot of what he's using. I do have to laugh because, like, I know that these students are going to be so excited to start programming, and I'm going to be like, all right, guys, before you touch a computer, let's talk about flowcharts and spreadsheets and Boolean logic and, you know, all the really interesting things that you'd need to know to have a strong foundation for programming. But when you start telling kids that they're going to revel in the glory of flowcharts, maybe not so many people are on board with you. Okay, that was actually... Okay, I am really glad I did that. I was starting to get a headache earlier, and so I decided to make a tea. Basically, just enough caffeine that it'll make the caffeine withdrawal headaches subside, because I did nothing today. I didn't even make a pot of coffee. I woke up, I moved from my bed to the living room, and I played Stardew Valley all day.
So, Stardew Valley, not even...
Animal Crossing?
Animal Crossing, yeah.
Both are fantastic games, but Stardew Valley is more of a farming simulator rather than a community simulator.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided that I felt like farming this past weekend for some reason.
There was a Finding Nemo game on one of the original iPads I got that I played. You were like building your little aquarium. It was a farming-ish simulator. Maybe a town simulator, maybe something like that, where you would lay things that you would get coins, and then you'd use those coins to build schools. You know, probably more like a community simulator than I guess. Not a community as in Friends, but a town simulator, maybe like that, right? You could get powerful farms if you spent lots of coins. But then I realized that the return on the smaller farms, if you laid like 25 small farms on a 5x5 grid, the return on that would be greater than the more powerful farms that you would get. Because you would all of a sudden get the 25 little coins would all produce while you were not playing. Of course, it was one of those games where you had to wait.
Yeah.
And then when they all produced, you would gain 25 times what a small farm would make, which was way better than the large farms. And the large farms were not 25 times the cost. You know, the small farm.
Was this game called Nemo's Reef?
Possibly. Is it still in iTunes now?
No, but I found a YouTube video of somebody playing through it.
Yeah, I think it was Nemo's Reef. Anyway, once I found that out, I stopped playing.
Once you figured out how to game the system?
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm done with this game.
Oh, by the way, I just read the first comment, and it said that the app is shut down.
Oh, okay.
So... for all of those people chomping at the bit to play Nemo's Reef, don't worry, it's shut down.
Sorry. It was kind of fun. My kids played a very little bit, and then they got tired of it. They were young, and the simulating was probably not what they wanted to do.
Actually, I heard about a farming simulated game that I think you might actually really be interested in the basic premise of.
Oh, yeah?
And the only reason is because it is... you land on a planet, and it is you and an automator bot, basically. And your goal is to basically create the most efficient automated farm.
Okay. You have to be efficient, huh? You're going for efficiency.
You're going for efficiency, and the only thing you do is you build things. You don't farm. You build all the machinations to make the farm run, and then it is run by your automator bots, basically.
It could very well be very tempting.
Yeah, and this is basically, I've just heard a review about it. I haven't played it at all. I don't even know what its name is, but I was eating dinner, and I basically had YouTube on like a gaming shuffle, because it would just jump from one video to the next based on what I have watched recently, and apparently I've been watching a lot of gaming things recently. Go figure.
So one of the things after we did finish our deck, after it stopped raining in July, finally.
It stopped raining?
You know, have you noticed? Because it's like 38 every day outside.
No, because I refuse to go outside when it's 38 every day.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because you might faint or like get bowled over just by the heat.
Yeah, I basically am doing I run from my air-conditioned home to my air-conditioned office, and then some days I just don't leave my air-conditioned home.
And even though that's 400 meters maybe, you've still sweat like a whole bucket, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's so hot.
The real trouble is, regardless of what I want to do, I still have to go out and buy groceries.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's not pleasant.
And it is very interesting that basically as soon as it stopped raining, the heat really kicked in, right?
Yeah, everybody complains about the rain. I am super happy with the rain sticking around forever.
No, the rain wasn't bad. The rain wasn't bad, especially toward the end, it would only rain for part of the day.
Mm.
Earlier on, it was raining for almost the whole day, and it was almost impossible to do something. But toward the end of July, it stopped raining some parts in the day, so you could do a few things outside. When you were outside, it wasn't even that bad, and then it would rain, and it'd be fine. But as soon as it stopped raining in July, pretty much stopped raining like July 31, right? It rained every single day in July here in Tokyo. Then we set up our pool, and it's not a very big pool. It's pretty tiny, but it's bigger than a kiddie pool, but smaller than any normal above-ground pool. We've had quite fun playing in that. Now that it's gotten really hot this past week, we haven't been going out as much because it's really hot.
Because the moment the water goes in the pool, it evaporates.
Almost. So, but it's been quite fun to play with that. So that was part of the reason why we wanted to build the deck, is that we had enough space now to build a pool on top. And we built the deck strong enough to hold a pool. We built the deck with extra supports underneath because I was planning on putting a pool inside. So
makes sense. Yeah. I will be honest, summers are the worst for me because if I chose to live in one place of Japan simply for the weather, I'd be choosing Hokkaido.
Mm-hmm. But even in Hokkaido, it gets up to 34, 35. I was in Hokkaido during the summer, and it's not always cool. Now, it's going to be less days for sure, but it's not terribly cool up there all the time.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. 6 feet of snow is my natural environment.
Yeah, the snow is kind of fun up in Hokkaido, that's for sure.
Well, what can you do? Import the snow? We can import the snow down here, right?
You would hope. I loved the snow melters in Hokkaido. They were the coolest things, where they would just shovel the snow onto basically heaters, and then you'd watch it evaporate off. It was quite fun.
It's either that, or we just have to make a satellite campus for our school up north. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Probably not, no. So one of the other things I did this summer was I did sign up for Japan's Disney Plus.
Oh, so tell me about the difference between Japan's Disney Plus and America's Disney Plus, because I haven't yet.
Because you have an American Disney Plus, right? I don't think you can log into the Japan Disney Plus, right?
I cannot.
Yeah, it's a completely different app. What I did was I signed up for Japan's Disney Plus online, and I downloaded the American app, and they're like, no, what are you trying to do? You can't do that. So that was disappointing. I had to go to the Japanese store and download the Japanese Disney Plus app. But there are a few disappointments. I think I am probably going to cancel at the end of the free month for now, and then possibly sign up again next summer or break or something like that, possibly. But I do like that it has all the recent stuff. There's definitely the recent movies that it has that haven't been on cable yet, so I haven't recorded it. So that's quite nice. We watched Frozen 2, which is one of the reasons we signed up, is because my daughters wanted to watch Frozen 2 again. And instead of renting it, we figured signing up for Disney Plus would be a better way, even if we had to pay for the month. Yeah. It would still be better.
Do you not have the American Disney Plus?
No, I don't have I don't have a VPN. Same thing with Dungeons and Dragons podcasts. Once I start, I figure I will keep going. So I've decided I don't need a VPN, because once I start, I will keep going. Although it's very tempting to sign up for CBS All Access right now.
Yeah.
Because the new Star Trek is not in Japan. Anyway, so it does have recent movies, but it only has few of the old movies. Like, we went through that long list of stuff Disney Plus had.
Yep.
In the previous episode, and a lot of them I think I was asking you were old ones.
Mm-hmm.
It has very few of them. The only old movie I saw was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and I searched for a whole bunch of others: Apple Dumpling Gang, Parent Trap. Oh, it has Freaky Friday, the original.
Okay.
So it has a handful, but a bunch of the other ones I searched for, it doesn't have them. So that's disappointing. The other interesting thing is it doesn't have the recent seasons of the kids' TV shows. Maybe it's because they haven't all been... No, they have to have all been dubbed and subtitled because they're on Japanese cable. So I don't know why they're not on Disney Plus already.
Well, I can say that if it's anything like other Japanese TV, they often don't like to put new stuff on the streaming, because where they make most of their sales is DVD and Blu-ray sales. If it's anything like that, then it might be that they're waiting for the initial sales to go away and then be like, okay, now we'll release it into the streaming services.
Mm-hmm. So my kids, one of the things I checked right away was, I know there are episodes of specifically Elena of Avalor and Rapunzel that have aired in America that have not yet aired on Japanese cable. So I was like, well, does this service have them? That would be, pretty nice. Then my daughters could get a little bit ahead. But it's basically a full season behind on all of those shows. So that's disappointing. So I think like the few key things that I was interested in, it didn't have. I think that was the big thing. To me, it was I wanted the old movies, the stuff that they don't show on Japanese cable. And I wanted recent TV shows because that would be another draw for my girls. Because recent movies, if I really wanted recent movies, I could buy them.
Yeah.
If I just saved up for 2 months of not paying for Disney Plus, I could buy a movie. So I'd get 6 movies a year, and that's probably all I would need.
For the new stuff, yeah.
And, with the big caveat that I have a huge collection of Disney stuff on my Synology already, right? I mean, that's the reason why I don't need something like this, is because I've already got a library of stuff. For me, in my situation, it doesn't make as much sense. I can definitely see where it's better for people in Japan who are not in my situation to have a library of stuff at their fingertips. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's just missing the key things that I wanted. So in the free month, I'm going to try to do a few things. I don't think I'm going to do Mandalorian yet, because I don't think I have enough time for that.
Oh, come on. It's great.
It probably is. But I don't...
There's no probably about it.
I was going to watch the 6 episodes of Imagineering if I can even get through that before the month ends. And that was the only thing I picked to watch. And the next time I sign up, I'll watch Mandalorian, I figure.
No, what you do is you just sit down and you power through the entire season in one weekend.
Yeah, I don't have time.
What? Yeah, I know.
So, too bad. And the apps are all in Japanese, right? So, I mean, one of the things I was kind of hoping was that Disney Plus could be something I installed on my daughter's phones and that they could just enjoy the stuff. With the apps all in Japanese, they probably could eventually. My older daughter is getting pretty good at reading Japanese. And they would just get used. I mean, already, honestly, the apps they use, they know by location anyway, right? They're not always reading the labels. So they could have gotten used to it, but I was a little disappointed that even installing the Japanese app on an English phone, it didn't, have English as an option. It's a little disappointing. It's not the end of the world, but it was disappointing.
I'm quite content with just VPNing. Because, I get to watch everything.
I am fairly tempted to get a VPN and sign up for CBS All Access and watch the new Star Trek show, because that did not make it to Netflix or Amazon Video overseas, which is very disappointing. You're
talking about the Lower Decks?
Yeah, Star Trek Lower Decks.
Yeah.
It just began airing in the U.S. at the beginning of August 6th or something like that, 5 or 6.
Is it on Amazon in America?
No, it's on CBS All Access in America and some third-party thing in Canada, I think, and that's it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's it.
But it's not on any other service at all.
Because, CBS All Access is one that clearly needs more people to sign up for. I just like that. Okay, so I went to the CBS All Access website, and like what they are advertising when they get to their originals, it is Star Trek Lower Decks, Twilight Zone, Tuning Out the News, Star Trek Discovery, The Good Fight, Interrogation, Star Trek Picard. I'm seeing a pattern here. That pretty much what they're selling a lot of people on is, I think it's Star Wars.
I hope not.
No.
At this point, I have plenty of TV to watch. I don't need to pay more money to watch TV.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I will be honest and say that I have been culling some of the streaming services that I haven't been watching.
Yeah, I mean, and the problem is I've even got seasons of stuff on my Synology I haven't even finished watching. So yeah, I have plenty to watch.
See, that's the thing, is I have so much to watch and so much to do and so little time in which to do it. But I'm still going to pay for it.
In one way or another, you're going to pay for it, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. In my attempt to not talk about something that I've talked about in a while.
Neo. It's going to be Neo.
It's not going to be Neo. I've talked about Neo before. Talked about a lot of things before. I am trying to honestly pick one that I have not talked about.
Pong. It's going to be Pong.
Yes, it's definitely going to be Pong.
Oregon Trail.
All right, let's talk about
You could do Stardew Valley. Is that what you were thinking?
No, I have a different one. So, I'm going to talk about a game that has some good news with it and something that I'm very excited for, but also is a game that I genuinely really enjoyed and loved.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the game is called Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. So, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is a very interesting game, first of all. It originally came out in 2012, and it was developed by Big Huge Games and 38 Studios. And 38 Studios, this was the only game they actually made because they went bankrupt after making this game.
Oh, that's too bad.
It is very sad that that happened. So one of the things that is really awesome about this game is, so R.A. Salvatore, the author, is the one who basically created the game's universe and lore. He created all of that. Grant Kirkhope, who is a pretty famous game musical artist.
Composer,
thank you. That's the word I'm looking for, a composer.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up making the musical score. Basically, they got all these really big names to contribute on this, and it is a very interesting game, very fun. It does play like a very much a classic action RPG, but it is a very fun game. Now, before I get more into the game itself, the good news. So, a couple of years back, the rights to this game were bought up.
Oh, okay.
And the people who bought it are actually re-releasing the game. And they are re-releasing it in less than a month now.
Is it going to be upgraded at all or remade?
I think the remake is going to have like some polished graphics, maybe a few like tweaks. I don't know too much on how much is being tweaked for the remake. Not yet, at least. But I do know that at the very least I am going to be buying it because I want them to continue in this universe. And I know that the only way they will ever continue in this universe is if people buy this game. Because it sunk one studio already. I doubt that they would do it again if this one doesn't sell well. But the basic storyline is, at the beginning of the game, you die. Great intro, right?
So where do you go from there?
You are actually brought back to life through a machine that basically captures a person's soul and then reconstructs a body around it, apparently. You are the only one this ever worked on. And right after it works on you, the machine is destroyed. But you are basically the fateless one. You are somebody who is outside of the idea of fate and all of destiny, and you can actually cause fate to bend to your will. So, storyline-wise, there is this epic war that's happening and has been happening for years between Fae, which are basically undying elf-like creatures. Think Titania Oberon sort of level of Fae creatures, of fairies and that sort of idea. So that if they die, they actually come right back. And the war is them versus all of the mortal races. So it's a little one-sided. So you are fighting against basically a group of evil Fae, and you died in the war, and you come back. So the entire game is you fighting against this group of evil Fae, and trying to overcome and fight against this fate that is, like, there is no way the mortal races can beat this group of people who are basically, they die and they come right back. So, But yeah, it's a action role-playing game, very fun. You can customize your character to be exactly the type of player you want to be. So there are the normal archetypes of fighter, rogue, mage, and you just put points into skills that you want. And so you can be a mix of all of those things. So you can run up to the front lines fighting like a fighter and then send out some sort of magic attack, or you can sneak around. One of the things that I found very unique about it is there is certain things where you can choose how to respond to things, and that's not unique to this game. There's a lot of games where you can choose like whether you're going to respond to this by murdering everybody or by talking it out. But what's interesting about this one is actually when you finish quests and have done something like that, many times they will give you what they call a twist of fate, which is a stat boost based around how you chose to respond to something. So your character is basically defined and you gain permanent effects based on choices you've made in the game. But it is a very fun game that I think that the world building that R.A. Salvatore did for this game is just awesome. And I'd love to see more of what happens in this world. But again, it sunk one of the previous developer of this game. And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing it come out again. This new one is being released is through THQ Nordic, is the company that is re-releasing it.
They're calling it Re-Reckoning.
Yes, it's Re-Reckoning. It's being reckoned again. Which again, I am very much hoping that it sells well so that we might get a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
So for all my loyal listeners, go out and buy this game for me. Even though I have played it and I have beat it previously, I am buying it again and I am playing it again.
So you're going to wait till the remake comes out to play it, though? You're not playing it right now?
I have been playing the original game a little bit as a refresher, but I've already beaten it.
Mm-hmm.
But once the remake comes out, I'm going to play it again. Maybe not right away, but I am buying this game. The only reason I say maybe not right away is simply because I've mentioned this before. I have a small backlog of video games that I have not beaten. Just a small one. Very, very minuscule.
Since the book we're going to read today has somebody who goes out and discovers pleasures of the flesh, we thought we would pick 2 meals.
Meals, yes.
Since one of the things he does go through is he tries different foods.
Well, he also does become a short order chef.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Because he wants to see if those things will... What do humans mean by these kind of pleasures of eating and cooking and things like that? So he discovers.
And dancing.
What is this fun?
Are we having fun?
We decided to pick 2 main entrees or meals that we enjoy.
Nothing deeper than that, but basically just 2 entrees that fill us with joy.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
So, why don't you go first?
Oh, okay. All right, I'm going to pick something that I found out about here in Japan. I don't think I had it in America first. But it's a modification of something Mexican, anyway. We have something called Mexican haystacks here in Japan. It's probably in America. Sometimes it's called taco rice. But it's basically taco meat and taco dressings on top of rice. And I like it a lot. My kids like it a lot. My wife makes it fairly frequently, and it's a favorite meal in our house. So my wife will grill, lately she's been grilling chicken as opposed to beef or pork, but grilled ground chicken with taco seasoning. And I like to put tomatoes and lettuce, cheese, and salsa on mine. But of course you can get into other fancy flavors. My wife does often put jalapenos and some Tabasco sauce and sometimes yogurt in place of sour cream since we don't really have sour cream here. But
it's really good and it is a go-to, but for me, if I'm going to do the substance of a taco, I gotta just have a taco. I need the tortilla.
Instead of putting it in rice, I do sometimes wrap it up in a soft tortilla.
Mm-hmm.
But hard shells are hard to come by here in Japan?
No, for me, I'm all about soft shells.
Okay.
I will go with a soft shell taco any day.
Mm-hmm. But I do like it on top of rice. I like it both ways. And I think I probably still like it on rice more than I like it in soft shells.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes my wife will fry up some shrimp with taco seasoning also, and that's really good. She's done some nice things with that.
Yeah.
And of course, I always like it homemade. You can actually order this in some restaurants around Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've tried it or my kids have tried it, but it's always better at home. Like the ones in the restaurants, I don't know how they mess it up, but it's always a little bit off. I just like the one we make at home much better. But they do serve it occasionally at our cafeteria, more often in the past than they have in recent times. And I don't remember what era this was because we've had a bunch of cooks since I've been here. This was very early on, and they were having Mexican haystacks, so I decided, yes, I want to go. And I picked up a large like I always do, and I was working my way through the line, and they were adding more vegetables as you go through. And the lady put 3 dices of tomato on my Mexican haystack. So I said, can I have some more? And so she added 2 more. So I walked away with 5 dices of tomato on my Mexican haystack. And I was like, what is this? 5 dices of tomato. I was like, oh, okay, sure. I'm moving through the line. But I was like, oh my goodness. I had a large plate of food with 5 dices of tomato. I was like, this is not the right proportion, but oh well.
No. Actually, if you want really good Mexican food in Tokyo, my suggestion is a restaurant called Junkadelic.
Oh, okay. I haven't been there.
It is, I think it's in Kanda.
Oh, okay. So it's fairly downtown then.
Yeah, it's downtown. Oh, no, it's in Meguro.
Oh, okay.
But it's got fantastic Mexican food.
Okay.
I love the food they have there. I usually get an enchilada.
One of our coworkers, he actually recommended 2 Mexican restaurants to me as last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had a chance to go there yet. So I do want to try those out too.
For me, since I don't cook all that often, I'm always on the lookout for good restaurants because I don't cook all that often.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because it is more expensive to cook for one person than it is to just eat out.
Well, especially in Japan, especially because the restaurants in Japan are generally more healthy than the restaurants in America. Generally. It's not always true.
Yeah. I mean, depends on where you're eating.
Yes, it does. And they serve decent-sized portions. Like, there are only a handful of restaurants, maybe 3 or 4, that we regularly go to that I leave feeling full. And it's usually the pizza tabehodai restaurants, right? The pizza all-you-can-eat ones.
Yeah.
Every other restaurant I go to, I leave satisfied.
Content.
Yeah, exactly. Not overstuffed, which is how I feel like when I leave American restaurants or a pizza tabehodai restaurant. So I like that about Japan. It's not like I went to a restaurant and I gorged myself on all the food they served me and then I paid $5 too much per plate. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that about restaurants in Japan.
I think the only times that I ever feel like overstuffed, there's a few places that their sets are just a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the big one that I can think of is actually, depending on what you get there, Gyoza no manchu.
Yeah, because if you get a big set with like the 6 gyozas.
Because if you get like their chahan set, perfect. But if you get like the pimon set,
with the big rice and the 6 gyozas.
Because the default comes with like this giant heap of peppers and beef and all this stuff, and then a side of rice, and then gyoza, it's too much. I've just taken to, if I'm feeling like having that, I'm ordering that tampin. I'm ordering that just the plate rather than the set.
That makes sense.
And then, of course, I'll usually order some gyoza as well, because, you can't go there without gyoza.
Yeah.
But then it cuts out all the excess, like, I don't need the giant pile of rice and the soup and the... Yeah. So all that to say, Mexican haystacks are great.
Yes. I like Mexican haystacks. Big fan.
I think the big danger is I might go and just pick all the things that I always eat when I go back home to visit my family. Because the first thing I'm going to pick is Chicago-style deep dish pizza.
It's not pizza. It's soup.
That is the only correct kind of pizza. Okay, that's an indefensible statement right there.
Yeah, that one is.
Yeah, no. But it is a fantastic pizza. And anybody who says that it's not pizza are liars.
Yes, as for me growing up near New York, it's not pizza.
Okay, so Chicago-style pizza, you get a nice, buttery, flaky crust, nice and thick, and then you start with a layer of cheese, and then sauce, and then cheese, and then toppings, and then sauce, and then cheese, and then and you just have this layer cake of delicious pizza. And there's nothing that fills me with more joy than having a delicious Chicago-style pizza.
I probably need to try it again.
Yes, you do. So, I grew up in Chicago, so Giordano's is usually my normal go-to. That's just classic. Can't go wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan, there is a store called Devil's Craft.
Okay.
There's a couple of stores. I think there's one in Meguro, one in Kanda. And that one, actually, it is the best Chicago-style pizza I've had in Japan. It tastes reasonably close to what I would normally expect. Portion size is a lot smaller than what you would normally get in America, but, you know, given how massive a Chicago-style pizza normally is, probably not for the worst. It's really good. They do have a 1-drink minimum when you go there, so, you know, I'm the weirdo who sits there with a cup of coffee and a pizza because my choices for drinks are that or water because of many reasons. Part of it is medication, part of it is choice, part of it is, All that to say, it is a very good pizza, but yeah, that store specifically is a Chicago-style pizza and craft beers, which is why they have the 1-drink minimum. But it is really good. So, really what you need to do is you need to go along with friends who do drink, and you just give them a second drink.
And you go by train then?
Yeah, well, or you're the one who has to drive. I've been the designated driver for years.
I don't think they have parking, though. It doesn't look like.
No, they don't. I usually take the train. But yes, that is the food that fills me with joy, is the true pizza, the pizza of the gods, the Chicago-style pizza.
You mean the pizza that came from Italy? No, not that one.
No, I said the pizza of the gods.
All right, my second pick. So I married a Korean woman. Wonderful for many things, including Korean food. And Korea has a lot of good dishes. But I'm going to pick Maewon bulgogi, which is basically spicy meat. And I like it a lot. Especially my mother-in-law makes very good. My wife makes pretty similar too, but my mother-in-law makes it very well. It's basically meat. Well, okay, let me not describe it because I will not do it justice. Never mind. It's bulgogi that has gochujang in it, so it's nice and spicy. Gochujang is the red pepper paste that makes things nice and spicy in Korea. But I like to eat it wrapped in lettuce with samjang, which is another Korean paste. And you can stick a whole bunch of other vegetables in as well, and rice, into the wrap with lettuce. And that's called samchusam. I do like to eat it like that, in basically lettuce wraps with whatever you want to wrap it with. Mushrooms or garlic or other vegetables. It is a very good meal. My kids like it too. So that is one of my favorites. There are many good Korean dishes. I almost picked samgyeopsal, which is like kind of a meat. It's a grilled pork belly, which you also eat in lettuce wraps. But there's like kimbap and gogi-guk, which is a meat soup. There's a bunch of good stuff. So lots of good Korean dishes.
You just make me feel sad about my choices because you're talking about things like wrapped in lettuce.
Well, sometimes the meat's a bit greasy. Sometimes, especially when you're doing samgyeopsal, that is a greasy one. But
yeah, I'm just thinking of like everything that is in my brain is like, if you eat too much of this, you might die.
Yeah, Korea has a lot of healthy dishes. As Japan does, Korea does even a little bit more, I feel. I do like Korean food.
Well, yeah, I think I have to go with... So, every year when I go home, if I get a chance to go home, because due to the state of the world, I don't know when the next time I'll be able to get home. I'd like to hope that it's Christmas, but, we'll see what happens. But when I go home, we eat out at basically all the places that I want to eat. Or if there's no restaurant near them, we will end up making it. So the second one that I really want to talk about are pasties.
Pasties?
I believe they're originally Cornish pasties is what they're called.
Okay.
I lived a portion of my life in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan,
Mhm.
and pretty much at all of the church get-togethers, everybody's making pasties.
Mm.
This was the thing that, like, potlucks, you had like 12 different kinds of pasties, but they're all basically the same.
Some would be better than others, though.
Some would be better than others, but basically what you're looking at is like, it's like meat, some types of vegetables. Some people like putting rutabaga in it. Some people put like carrots, potatoes, all wrapped within basically this shortbread crust. So it's like a calzone basically, but with a meat pie filling.
Mm-hmm.
The story I always heard growing up, which, you know, could be real, could be not, was the idea that it was basically the meal that you could wrap up and put in your helmet as a miner, because it would have all of the food in one, like, hand-holding package. So when you were going into mines, you would basically just grab a pasty and go.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to hold too much more, huh?
Yep, you wouldn't have to bring, like, utensils. You would just have the food right there.
Hmm.
But again, that's the legend that I heard. And whether or not it's true, that's, you know, we'll see.
Hmm.
But yeah, it is delicious. Usually the crust tastes somewhere between a calzone and a pie crust. So nice and flaky, and you have your meats, you have potatoes. Usually at home, we fill it with potatoes, onions, think a little bit of carrots. We don't use rutabaga in ours. But, you know, I'm going to be told by 1,000 people that if you don't use rutabaga, it's not a real Cornish pasty. Which technically is true, but you know what?
The recipes I'm finding don't have rutabaga in them.
Really?
And they're calling them Cornish pasties.
Oh, okay.
But you still could be right.
Okay, well then maybe they really are. They are really good though.
So it's kind of like chicken pot pies almost.
Yeah, and it's all in one location. What's really good about them too is once you've cooked them and like cooked the meat and had everything prepared like that, they're really easy to freeze and will last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just pull one out, pop it in the oven for a little bit, warm it up, make sure that the insides are nice and warm. Full meal without having to cook a thing.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
They're delicious, they're filling, and basically, for me, it is the taste of home.
Pretty cool. Looks good. I've never had one, but they do look good.
Here's the thing. Now that I am in an apartment that has a full-sized oven, if I find the right ingredients, I'm making one of these. So I might treat you to one if I actually figure out where I can find these ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have some neighbors who like to go to like Costco and things like that, so I'm sure I can find the right ingredients. It's just, my problem is,
You're going to get 2 years worth of it in one purchase, though.
Yep, that's the problem. I hate having food go to waste, which means that if I'm making these and they give me the Costco size of things, I'm making 200 of these and I'm eating nothing else for a year. Which actually might not be so bad.
After we had Dan Morin on, and we were talking about how... Didn't we say something about this? Like, what if you have Coke and you stick orange and, like, cream together?
I think we were talking about an orange cream soda Coke.
Something like that, right? I think we had mentioned that.
Yeah, something like that.
This was in the store soon after we made that recording and talked about it. But this is Coke Orange Vanilla.
Which, you know...
Pretty close.
Pretty close. And orange vanilla.
I bought this a while back now, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe early July.
Yeah, I think so.
And they're still in the stores now. It's still popular in the stores.
Or at least they had enough of it that it's still around.
Yeah, well, they didn't bring the price down. The price stayed pretty consistent. So I think maybe it was fairly popular, at least.
So what you're saying is, we've been putting off drinking this, and now, once we realize how good it is, it's going to be out of the stores.
Yeah, they're going to have sold out by tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
By tomorrow, yeah. Because they've been in stores for over a month, and because we're now drinking it, now it's going to be gone.
But I'm a little hopeful that this is actually decent. I'm a little hopeful.
I'm optimistic, because I've had vanilla Coke. Vanilla Coke is good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep, I did like vanilla Coke. And orange isn't too bad. I had orange Fanta today, even.
It's the mix of Coke, vanilla, and orange that concerns me, though.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that's worrying me about this one is that there is no fruit juice. Did you notice the kanji there at the bottom? Completely missing fruit juice.
You know,
No oranges died in making this soda.
I didn't expect an orange to have died making a orange vanilla Coke.
Completely made up flavors.
I anticipated as much juice in this as you would find in any other highly chemical-based substance that you're putting into your body like this. I would anticipate Monster Energy drink having more juice in it.
This is a full 500 milliliters, though, at least. That is a good sign.
Yeah. So, the real question is
it good?
Is it good?
Let's try it out.
Oh, I should not have held that right underneath my face.
It's got quite a good smell.
Yeah.
It's very strong on the vanilla.
Orange is an aftertaste.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Less on the orange. It tastes more like a Coke float in some ways, when the ice cream has kind of melted.
A little bit. Not quite as much.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of liking it.
I like it. I would say it tastes like a vanilla Coke with just like an aftertaste of orange.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the second drink, I am tasting what you're talking about with it tastes like a melted Coke float. But I would say it would only be that way if the amount of ice cream you had in your Coke float was very small.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I don't know about you, but if I'm making a Coke float, it's got tons of ice cream in it.
Yeah, it's pretty thick, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a thick drink.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't had a float in years, but...
I know. You can't have root beer floats because they don't really sell root beer here in Japan.
Well, also, there's this crazy thing where I try to pretend that I'm eating healthy, which I recognize I'm not a lot of times, but I'm trying. And there's the part of my brain that just says, oh, you want a Coke float? That's right out.
So do you think this lives up to what you and Dan Morin were talking about?
I think it's pretty close. This is one of the better drinks that we've had.
I think so too. I'd say it's 8 or 9.
Yeah. This is definitely an 8 or 9. It is really good. Among the things that we've tasted, among the different drinks we've had.
Yeah, this is up there with Coke Apple, right? Coke Apple was one of the better ones.
See, I didn't put Coke Apple that high up. I would say this is definitely better than Coke Apple. Definitely better than Coke Strawberry.
Way better than Coke Strawberry. Coke Strawberry was super disappointing.
Yeah, that's so disappointing it never actually made it on a show.
Right, pretty much.
I would almost say that, like, what was the one that we had? Episode 23 had the, that had the CC Lemon, didn't it?
Yeah, CC Lemon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, even better than the CC Lemon.
Better than the CC Lemon, yeah.
Well, besides the rich honey CC Lemon, which was horrible.
Yeah, no, we don't talk about that CC Lemon.
The lemon peel CC Lemon and the salty CC Lemon were two good ones.
Yes.
And yeah, this one might eclipse those.
I would say this tops the CC Lemons, simply because, any alteration of the CC Lemon flavor is a little bit lesser, whereas this feels like an improvement on the Coke formula.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Mort.
Let's talk about Mort.
I mean, let's talk about the boy. Sorry.
The boy.
The boy.
The boy.
Mort.
Mort. Anyway, the main media of this evening, I found out that Nate had not read any of the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. So, I decided that I would have him read one of them. I have a couple, but the one that I lent to him was Mort, which I believe is the third book in Discworld series.
Fourth.
The fourth book. Now, each story they have some overlap, and some of the Discworld series have stories that feed into other ones. Like, there are other stories that involve death. There are other stories that involve Mort, and you should probably have read this one if you're going to go into those ones. But in the early stages at this point, a lot of them can be read pretty independently.
Mm.
Anyway, this is the point of the show where I say, if you have not read Mort, you should probably go and read it because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. And if you have read it, but it's been a long time, I'll give you a little bit of a refresher course on this one. So, Mort is the story of, Mort. He is the person who becomes the apprentice to Death. And upon becoming Death's apprentice, is taken to Death's domain, where he meets Isabel, who is Death's adopted daughter, and Albert, who is Death's manservant. And after spending time there and doing some various chores around the domain, he ends up going with Death to practice the job that he is apprenticed to, ushering a few souls into the afterlife. After he's done this a couple of times, Death decides then he's going to send Mort out to take care of the duty on his own. On one of these trips, in a moment of youthful foolishness, infatuation, whatever you call it, Mort actually ends up preventing the death of a young princess by killing the assassin. In doing so, Mort actually goes against what fate had already decreed and ends up creating a separate reality. One where the princess lives, and the other, the actual reality, where she died, as it was the intention of fate all along. The world both did and didn't move on without her. Many people were forgetting who the princess was, or even if she existed, or that she hadn't died at the very least, and she ended up recruiting a mage. His job was to make everybody realize that she was still in the room. Because with this change in reality, many people were forgetting that she even existed. Upon Mort's return to Death's domain, he ended up lying to Death, saying that, oh no, everything went off without a hitch. And Death, hearing this, decided to take a vacation and give living a try. So Mort ended up taking over the duty of guiding souls, and Death sashayed and took up the life of a short-order chef. But this alternate reality problem ended up creating a whole lot of problems for Mort. And he tried to find a way to prevent the princess from simply winking out of existence, and all the while taking on more and more of Death's role and becoming more and more like Death. Eventually, Mort, in his attempt to find out a way to prevent the princess's utter non-existence, he finds out that Albert was one of the greatest mages of all time and pressures him into helping him. Albert ends up giving in and gives him a spell to help slow down the change of reality, but not to stop it altogether. And in Mort's attempt to give this to the mage that is assisting the princess, all sorts of things go awry. And Mort, in an attempt to rescue the princess, ends up taking her, Isabel, the mage who was the official noticer, all to Death's domain. As this happens, Albert, who had been forced into helping, ended up going and retrieving Death, trying to make him take his real role back, rather than his role of dance parties and petting cats. So, as this all comes to a head, it ends up being that Mort and Death have to fight for the role of Death to decide what is going to happen with all of these people who are now in Death's domain. And Mort didn't want the role of Death. He didn't want to fight. But he also knew that if he didn't, everyone would end up dying. So he ends up fighting Death, and effectively was going to lose. But it was the discussion through the fight, the words of Death's daughter, and all of this stuff that had happened, and the experiences Death had, that before the final blow was struck, he looks at Mort's hourglass with his life and the sands that are trickling through it, and decides at the last minute to flip it over and give him an extension on his life.
But only twice as long.
Potentially. So, because I was the one who had you read this book, first things first, initial feelings.
I liked it a lot.
Glad to hear that.
There was a bunch of small things that I liked, but one of the ones I definitely liked was that he kept trying to get everyone to call him Mort. Right? Nobody wanted to call him Mort. And all throughout the book, even toward the end, everyone was like, the boy, the boy, the boy. I'm Mort.
I'm Mort.
That was great.
Yes.
I have a few questions first, I think.
All right, sure. Shoot.
This didn't affect... I still like the book, but I do think it was interesting that Death wanted an apprentice in the beginning. I guess I was trying to figure out what was his motivation in picking up Mort. I mean, my guess is that his motivation in picking up Mort Was his motivation from the beginning that he wanted to try earthly things, so he needed someone else to do it? Or was picking up Mort still just part of his trying earthly things, getting closer to humans, right? He had a servant, he had a daughter. Now he wanted to try yet another human thing of having an apprentice.
You know, that's the thing is, I think that doesn't have an answer. Because for the same reason that you don't know why he picked up his daughter. You don't know why he decided to give Albert...
Yeah, get a cook, right? He doesn't eat.
Yeah. He doesn't have any reason for necessarily doing it. I mean, it could be that he wanted a companion for his daughter.
Yeah, I was thinking that possibly. But then he would have had to have known more than he was letting on.
Yeah.
Or maybe he just wanted a companion, not knowing where it might still lead.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, it did work out towards that end. But it's hard to know why. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting something.
My headcanon is probably leaning toward that it was another step in his trying to be more of the flesh, like you were saying.
Trying to be more human, or more mortal, I guess. Because what I always found interesting was the fact that the entire time other people talk about death as he is more real than everything else that exists.
Yeah, yep.
And so for him, it's trying to understand the other side of things. Trying to understand that existence, that less real existence is the best way to put it. I think it does come down to the fact that he is fascinated by humanity. Like, you'll see this in a lot of the other times that you see him, where he thinks humanity is very interesting, but he is like always like trying to understand it. Are we having fun yet?
So another question I had then, was Mort becoming death? Because, so you mentioned in the summary, but toward the end he was actually beginning to change into death.
Yeah.
Was he beginning to change into death because he was doing the duties, right? Is that why he was becoming death? Because he was accepting of...
I think that that's the impression I was getting, was the one who does the duty is death. And therefore, because Mort was the one doing the duty, he was becoming death.
With all seriousness. He wasn't like earlier when he was doing the duties, he wasn't becoming death, but that last trip he took with Isabel, he was wanting to do it seriously because he wanted to get it done.
Well, also, while he was going through everything, it was the fact that he was becoming more real. And nothing is realer than death, because everything dies.
Yeah, somebody mentioned, I forget who mentioned that, but somebody was, have you noticed Mort becoming more real? He's standing up straighter, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And so all this is happening. So throughout the story, he would walk through a wall without realizing he did it.
Or get shot by an arrow.
Or get shot by an arrow. So it's that sort of thing where he was always moving in the direction of becoming more real, becoming more like death, because he was doing that role. It's just at the end, he had gotten so close because he had been doing the role for a long time, and he was throwing himself fully into that role. I think that's why.
And when they were doing the conjuring spell,
yeah,
he was death at that time, right? He was doing the duty. He was that person at that time. So Isabel helped him snap out of it.
Yeah.
Said, no, you're not death. And then it called the appropriate death.
Yep. For those of you who are listening, we did listen to this as an audiobook. And the thing that I want to actually bring up is because I originally read this as the novel.
Okay.
And so when you are reading the novel, the thing about Death is his dialogue is always written in small caps.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So everyone else's dialogue is written normally, but his is always written in small caps, and they are never quoted because it's basically like he's speaking into your brain. Into
your head.
So no quotation marks, small caps. So that's the thing that always differentiates. So the reader for the book was doing the voice like this every time you got to the small caps parts. So that's the thing that I always found very interesting. So in other Discworld books, when Death is basically like sitting in a cafe and like a wizard is like in the other side of the room talking, and then hears the voice that goes like this, and basically the small caps written in the book, you'll know that Death is in the room. And Death pretty much makes regular appearances in these novels. He made an appearance in the first book, which is called The Color of Magic, by the way.
One of the things I have here in my notes is that I was going to say, I definitely loved the narration. While Death's narration was very good, the voice that the speaker did for Death was very good, I think my favorite had to be Mort's voice, though.
Yeah.
Because the voice that he chose, the accent and the intonation that he chose for Mort, definitely added to the character.
It gave a personification that seemed almost country bumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
And then the transition from country bumpkin to Death done with his voice is a very interesting transition.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, I should also mention that in the Discworld series, there are 5 books in total where Death is a leading character.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
So, if you really like Death, he comes back.
And again and again. But most people only see him once.
Hopefully. Except for that one guy who apparently gets reborn into...
Yeah. He has to go to town quickly.
He has to go to town quickly and find whoever is... conceiving at that moment.
Yeah, that was a little silly.
You know? Hey.
Everybody gets what's coming to them.
Everyone gets what's coming to them.
That's a good use of that phrase.
Yeah.
That's not what that phrase means, but okay.
Although you do have to say that, like, if that's the idea of what happens when you die, that everyone gets what's coming to them, or everyone gets what they expect, then that makes a very interesting perspective. Because, you know, I'm sure there's some people who expect the worst. And maybe...
end up there.
Yeah. I will admit, I have not read every Discworld book. There are a lot of them. I have not read them all. And Death has appeared in most of them. I think this is listing 2 or 3 that it was not. So there's 2 or 3 total books in the Discworld series where he is not there. And there are 41 total novels.
Wow, 41 in the Discworld.
Yeah, I mean, as you could tell, they're quick books, but they were published from 83 to 2015. A little over 30 years for 41 books.
I think the thing that I loved the most was the world in general. Not just the Discworld, though. I mean, I guess probably including Death's world. Because there were a lot of rules put into place throughout the book. But mostly early on, I guess, but still throughout the book.
Yeah.
And I like how the book was very consistent with all those rules. Like, it didn't veer off course. Except for maybe when he flips the hourglass over. That was a little bit like... Didn't he? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I don't know. I would feel like that's kind of in law with the rules. Because you hear throughout the story, gods are subject to him. The very turtle on which the world rides is subject to him.
Okay.
Everything is subject to Death. He is the one thing that is real in the world that basically, I think at one point they say he is the one who, when the universe ends, is going to be around turning off the lights and locking the doors. So
here's my question then too. This is all hypothetical, I guess, but if Mort had become Death, if Mort hadn't caused a problem and continued to be Death's apprentice and was becoming more and more Death, would he have risen to that state? And would he have gained the appropriate knowledge he needed just because he's in that state, or would he still have needed to learn? I guess that's... Because one of the things I was struggling with is, how can Mort actually be Death? He's still missing some of these key things that they keep saying, you don't know about this, and you don't know about this, and even Alfred's telling him things he doesn't know, even at the end of the book.
I think he was becoming that.
Okay.
That's the thing.
He would have somehow sucked in the knowledge as he was becoming that,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe not even the knowledge, maybe just the understanding, right?
Yeah.
In my notes here, actually, one of the things I was going to ask you, so you kind of already answered this, is that, because this is book 4, Discworld was the thing, was Death's World mentioned in the first 3 books? Or
I don't think so.
So that was kind of invented in this book, if you were reading.
Yeah, it was introduced in this book.
That's what I meant. Right. Mm-hmm. But the whole way the Discworld works was already talked about in books 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. For example, they talk about the color octarine a couple of times. That was talked about several times in the book The Color of Magic,
Mm-hmm.
which is book 1, actually. But yeah, it's very interesting because, so the books, many times they have interconnecting storylines and things like that, but there's a main actor, basically, in it. One thing that kind of connects them all. So, for example, death being like a major part of the story in the section from Mort to Reaper Man to Soul Music, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all these stories are interconnected. What's very interesting is the first couple of books. I actually read that, I don't remember where I read it, but I read that Terry Pratchett said that Mort was the first book that he was actually happy with that he published. He felt like, he felt like in the first couple of books, the plot was to help the jokes. And yet he felt like in this book, the plot was integral to the story. Because he is, at his basis, a comic fantasy writer. He does comic fantasy, satire, and science fiction, all of that. But the Discworld is primarily fantasy, but also comic fantasy. Which is why you have a world that light moves slow, and the world rides on the back of 4 elephants who are riding on the back of a turtle.
So those were jokes, and then he built stories around a joke kind of thing.
Well, kind of, but it's more along the line, not jokes. He built the world, and the world was ridiculous, which is the joke. But the world also has an internal logic that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the wonderful things about the way he writes, is he makes something that's ridiculous that also makes sense. The same way that Douglas Adams says the Volgon ship floated in the sky the same way that a brick doesn't. That sort of idea.
Mm-hmm.
Where he is expressing these stories, and the story, while it has humor in it, is also a very solid plot and storyline.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's what I found very interesting, was this was one of the first stories he was really happy with.
Yeah, that is interesting. I've read a few series
Mm-hmm.
where I've gotten tired of reading the series because I feel like they continually explain the backstory to catch the reader up, right? Which I always wonder who starts on the 10th book of the Mara Matsue Numberland. Why do you explain all this backstory? If you're reading book number 10,
Yeah.
come on. I got tired of that after a while in that series. And I feel like being in the 4th book, I felt like I got some information about Discworld.
Yep.
But it was introduced, maybe except for the part that was explained about the turtle.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else seemed introduced because of the way the characters are moving through the land. It didn't seem like there was exposition because, oh my goodness, you're in book 4. Let me explain a few things because you didn't read book 1, 2, and 3.
Well, it's because, first of all, it is being told from Mort's perspective, and so the only things that Mort notes and talks about are the things that stand out to him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you don't see Mort going, well, clearly you need to know about octarine, because octarine is something that's very unique to Discworld. No, nobody needs to know about it because it doesn't matter to Mort.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think that's how it makes sense, because it's being told from a perspective of Mort. You only hear about the things that are important and affect Mort. Specifically the story, too. But that's how you write a book well. Yes, this coming from somebody who's never published a book.
I mean, I liked number 1 Ladies Detective Agency series a little bit, but I did definitely hate the 2 or 3 pages that were like, let me catch you up on the previous books. Every time I read through them, I was like, this is a catch-up. This is specifically catch-up, these 3 pages here.
Yeah, no, I would say that those sort of pages are mostly unnecessary, simply because you shouldn't start on book 17.
Yeah, exactly.
But I will say that is one of the ways that the Discworld series kind of gets away with it, though, is because in addition to the Discworld series, which has 41 books, there's also like mini-series inside those series. The Night Watch books, that's one mini-series inside of the Discworld series. And the Night Watch series is a fantastic series, which I highly recommend reading, but we'll get to that another day.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with Guards, which you might have heard of before.
I don't think I've heard that, no.
Really? Oh, okay.
So did he only write books into the Discworld series, or did he write other books too?
He wrote other books.
There's a lot of books.
Yeah. So, for example, what's a book that you might have known of? Good Omens. Have you heard of that one?
No.
It was co-authored with Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Okay.
And it's basically about the end times and basically an angel and a demon who are trying to prevent it. They're like, hey, we like this existence thing. Let's not cause the end times. And there actually was a mini-series where they made a TV adaptation of it. Where it is Michael Sheen and David Tennant through Amazon.com. So you can potentially watch it on Amazon Prime.
Good Omens, huh?
Good Omens. But yeah, that's one of his stories, which he co-authored. He also wrote a book called Nation. Oh, by the way, I have been saying his name wrong this entire time, by the way.
It's not Pratchett?
No, I just keep forgetting to call him his proper name. Sir Terry Pratchett.
Oh.
He is knighted. I am glad that you enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I do really like his writing style simply because, for me, this is very much embodied in the story of Mort. It is the tying of humor with a strong and effective storyline that I love. The reason I like that so much is because 9 times out of 10, if I'm going to watch a movie, read a book, play a game, I want there to be humor in what I'm doing. I will undoubtedly go to something funny more than something dramatic anytime. And so that's the thing is, for me, what draws me to a story is, yes, it's got a great storyline, but it also has some great humor that lightens the mood, but also keeps me going in for more.
Yep. I think I didn't realize how important that was. The humor was a necessary background.
Did you not notice the humor of things?
No, I mean, I noticed it when I was reading it because I was laughing or giggling or something like that. I mean, I noticed it, but I think I didn't place enough importance on it when I was writing my notes. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Ah. Now, see, the reason it stands out to me is the fact that I've read so many fantasy novels where it's like, these heroes are doing amazing things and being epic and saving the world. And that's the same thing that's happening in here, but they're also willing to crack a joke at themselves. And I repeat, is this fun? Are we having fun? Well, I was.
Exactly. That's right. That's what he says. I thought I was. Or something like that, yeah.
And that's why I love these stories. I will be honest, there have been some really great books that I've had to give up partway through simply because it was nothing but drudgery and depression the entire way through.
Or flat characters or something like that, right?
Or flat characters. And these have vibrant characters, and there's joy in the story even when horrible things are happening.
And humor between Mort and Alfred or something like that, right?
It's Mort. Because everybody kept referring to him as boy.
Boy. Alfred. Death continued to refer to him as boy. Did he ever say Mort? I don't know, even at the wedding? I don't even remember.
I think if he did, it was at the wedding. I can't remember. There is also a possibility that he mentioned him by name in a future novel. Because Death does go back and interacts with Mort a little bit, but not much. Because Lord Mortimer has some things to do.
Yeah, he's got to keep the country together.
Got to keep the country together.
And the new treaty or whatever. He's got to make the treaty happen, right?
Yeah.
Because the Duke died when they were fighting, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they do show up a couple of other times. If you do end up reading the other books, the thing that makes me smile is the fact that when you do read those other books, you get to know some of the other characters who might make like a bit appearance here.
Oh, in this book.
But have like integral plot to the world as a whole. For example, one of the mages that Albert was dealing with is actually one of the main characters of...
That's why I recognize that name in the picture.
Yes, Rincewind.
Yeah, Rincewind, yeah.
Yeah, he is a major character in a lot of novels.
Oh.
Even though he's only like there for like one chapter in this one.
Which is a pretty funny chapter because the university that Albert's named after, he kind of ruins his name for all these people in the university. It's pretty funny.
Yep, let's rebuild his statue and
put it
lock it in the basement.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Once you know, and now that you've read Death's story, because, for example, the first story, The Color of Magic, is based around Rincewind, but Death is there. He shows up a couple of times in that story. Because Rincewind's a mage.
He can see the death.
He can see death.
Yeah, interesting. Good book.
Good book. So I am glad that I picked this one for you to listen to first. Especially because in reading about Mort, I was pleasantly surprised. Here it is. In 2004, Pratchett stated that Mort was the first Discworld series with which he was pleased, saying that in his previous books, the plot had existed to support the jokes, but in Mort, the plot was integral. Mort is a fantastic book. I feel like it is very well loved. If I get a chance, I will have you read some more Discworld, but there are a lot of other stories I want to get you to read, but Discworld is a fantastic series that I think you should always give another shot to if you ever have time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much.
That is why I wanted you to join me on my hill. If I were to ever actually be published, I would hope that my stories would be as beloved as this, but, you know, I know that they won't be. Because he is a masterful writer who is able to just meld the plot and the humor perfectly. Which is why he is so well known, so well loved. And they made a point-and-click adventure about Discworld.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's not good, but they made it.
All right, let's read the opening, huh?
Yeah, we still haven't done that, right? How did I close down my show notes? La da 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 da. I said the pizza of the gods. Ambrosia, if you will.
You mean the gods from Greece?
Except ambrosia is technically a drink, but hold up. They call... What? Sorry. Ambrosia is technically, in Greek myths, a food or a drink of the gods. Apparently, some crazy Americans decided to name fruit salad ambrosia. I don't know about you, but I never considered fruit salad to be the food of the gods. Sorry, side note.
Wow. Downtown Tokyo, there's like a lot of train lines. Like every block, there's a new train line there.
Yeah, that's the thing is, if you go downtown, it's like, you never need a car because you just go, which train do I get on? That one.
Oh, this was a staple in the Redwall series of books.
Oh, was it?
Apparently.
Huh.
On the menu, and the mice and the hares of Redwall Abbey. Oh my. I read too many of those books. Should have stopped earlier. Anyway, sorry.
I've noticed that my brain has just stopped in mid-thought like 4 times in the past half an hour. That's probably not a good sign. I mean, we have been recording for a little over 2 hours and 40 minutes,